Christmas at my parents' house had always been a mix of warmth and tension. But this year, the dread felt heavier than usual. Ever since my divorce from Ryan, these family dinners had become arenas for his ego to perform. I had tried to shield my kids, Olivia and Jake, from his temper. But no amount of preparation could fully erase the unease that came with his presence. Lucas, my fiancé, had been my calm anchor through all the chaos. He had this quiet confidence, the kind that made you believe nothing could rattle him. When he offered to accompany me to the dinner, I accepted immediately, feeling a rare sense of security. Tonight, I promised myself, I wouldn't let Ryan get the best of me. The moment we walked through the front door, Ryan's eyes found me. That same familiar smirk stretched across his face, the one that meant trouble was brewing. "So, you really replaced me with him," he said loud enough for everyone in the living room to hear. "A janitor, huh? That's pathetic." His laugh was sharp, cruel, like it cut through the festive decorations and made the air feel colder. For a heartbeat, the room went silent. Then, my kids' laughter bubbled up nervously, unsure whether to be embarrassed or amused. I could feel my face flush with humiliation. I had spent years trying to keep the peace between Ryan and our children, and now it felt like all that effort was undone in a single, careless sentence. I took a deep breath, willing myself to remain composed. "Ryan," I said, my voice steady, "let's not make this about me tonight." But he ignored me, turning to the rest of the family with a gleam in his eye. "Seriously, Olivia, Jake, your mom actually thinks this guy is impressive? Can you believe it?" Olivia looked down at her plate, and Jake fidgeted, trying not to look at me in confusion. My hands tightened around my napkin. I had a sudden urge to just get up and leave, to escape the humiliation that had been quietly accumulating for years. Lucas placed a reassuring hand on my shoulder. "Don't worry about him," he murmured. "Just enjoy the evening. Let him dig his own hole." His calm presence grounded me, reminding me that I wasn't alone. I tried to smile, nodding to Lucas. "Thank you," I whispered. I turned toward Ryan, trying to muster authority. "This is my family, Ryan. We're here to celebrate, not argue. Can you behave for one night?" He chuckled, a sound that grated against my nerves. "Oh, I'm behaving. I'm just making observations. Observations everyone should hear." He leaned back in his chair, arms crossed, enjoying the spectacle he was creating. Dinner continued awkwardly, each bite feeling heavier than the last. Ryan found ways to make comments, sly and sarcastic, about Lucas's past jobs and simple lifestyle. "A janitor? Really? You must be proud, Mom. Really proud," he said under his breath, though everyone could hear. My stomach churned, but I refused to give him the satisfaction of a reaction. I looked at my children and saw confusion, but also curiosity. They had grown up seeing this side of their father, but they were starting to recognize the difference between Ryan's manipulation and reality. Just as I was about to excuse myself, Lucas smiled, that patient, quiet smile that always carried an unspoken promise. "I have a little surprise outside," he said softly, nodding toward the front door. My heart skipped a beat, and for the first time that evening, I felt a glimmer of hope that things might actually change. I excused myself and followed Lucas to the driveway. My breath caught in my chest when I saw what he had arranged. There, shining under the holiday lights, was a brand new, sleek black Bentley. The polished metal gleamed, reflecting the festive decorations and casting tiny sparkles across the snow-dusted driveway. Ryan's face turned pale as he noticed it from the window. He opened the front door, stepping outside, clearly confused. What is this?" he stammered. Lucas stepped forward confidently, pointing at Ryan. "You see this, Ryan? 3 words. Don't underestimate anyone." His voice was calm, steady, yet filled with undeniable authority. The words hung in the cold night air, echoing off the walls of the house, leaving Ryan speechless. I felt a rush of pride, not just for Lucas, but for myself. This moment wasn't about proving anything to Ryan. It was about reclaiming my dignity, showing my children that standing tall in the face of cruelty was possible. Olivia and Jake came rushing out, their eyes wide as they took in the scene, finally seeing a side of Lucas that went beyond kindness. He was someone who could protect and stand up for us. Ryan stumbled backward, momentarily lost for words, and the laughter from the living room had stopped. For once, the power he had wielded so effortlessly felt stripped away. I realized then that the tables had finally turned. Lucas and I watched as Ryan retreated back into the house, mumbling under his breath. I exhaled, the tension leaving my shoulders. "That was incredible," I whispered, squeezing Lucas's hand. You really did it." He smiled, the same patient, reassuring smile, and kissed the top of my head. "We did it together," he said. "Tonight, you showed your children what true strength looks like, and I just help you make the point a little louder." I looked at Olivia and Jake, seeing the respect in their eyes, and I felt a warmth spread through me. Tonight wasn't just about confrontation. It was about setting an example, showing that integrity, courage, and confidence were worth more than sarcasm, mockery, and ego. We stepped back inside, hand in hand, my children flanking us. Ryan stayed in the corner, his smirk gone, replaced by a subtle awareness that things had shifted. The rest of the night continued, a little less tense, a little more real, with laughter that felt genuine and conversations that didn't center on criticism or comparison. I realized that Christmas, the holiday I had once dreaded, had become a turning point. Not just for me, but for my kids. They had witnessed strength and compassion in action, and for the first time in years, they saw their mother not as someone caught in Ryan's web, but as a woman capable of commanding respect, love, and admiration on her own terms. As the night drew to a close, Lucas and I exchanged a look that spoke volumes. This was more than a holiday dinner. It was a declaration of the life we would continue to build together, grounded in mutual respect, understanding, and courage. And for the first time in years, I knew that nothing Ryan could say would ever take that away. The morning after that unforgettable Christmas dinner, I woke up with a mix of relief and anticipation. The air was crisp, and snow still clung to the edges of the window panes, sparkling like a promise. I could hear Lucas moving around the kitchen, humming softly while making coffee. The normal, comforting sounds of life had returned, but something had shifted. Tonight, we had drawn a line, and it felt like freedom. Olivia and Jake bounded into the kitchen, still buzzing from last night's events. "Mom, did you see Dad's face?" Jake said, practically bouncing on his heels. "He didn't know what to do." I chuckled, pouring them each a cup of hot chocolate. "Yes, I saw," I said, smiling at their excitement. "But remember, tonight wasn't about showing off. It was about standing up for ourselves and each other." Lucas handed me a mug, his warm eyes locking with mine. "And you did it beautifully," he said. "You stayed composed, kept your dignity, and gave your kids a lesson they'll never forget." I felt my chest swell. He was right. I hadn't just defended Lucas. I had defended the version of myself that had spent years doubting her worth. The mother who had quietly endured Ryan's jabs, the woman who had questioned whether she deserved real love, she was finally reclaiming her life. After breakfast, I decided to tackle the lingering dread of seeing Ryan again. He had been unusually quiet since last night, and I wasn't sure if he was plotting something or if the sting of embarrassment had truly silenced him. I couldn't wait to find out. By mid-morning, we were all bundled up and heading out for a walk in the neighborhood. The snow glistened under the weak winter sun, and the kids were thrilled to make snowmen and throw snowballs at each other. Lucas stayed close, keeping an eye on the playful chaos. But every once in a while, he'd catch my gaze and offer that reassuring, patient smile. We were halfway down the street when my phone buzzed. It was a message from Ryan. "We need to talk. Alone." I froze. My first instinct was to delete it, but a small voice inside me said otherwise. This was my chance to control the narrative. If he wanted to confront me, I would do it my way. Lucas noticed my pause. "Do you want to handle this now or ignore it?" he asked gently. I took a deep breath. "Let's do it now. I'm not going to run from him anymore." We drove to a quiet cafe nearby, where we agreed to meet. Ryan was already seated, looking tense and unusually subdued. The arrogance that had defined him for so long was replaced by something thinner, more uncertain. "Look," he began, his voice low. "Last night, you embarrassed me in front of everyone. I need to understand why you did that." I smiled faintly, keeping my voice calm. "Ryan, I didn't embarrass you. You embarrassed yourself. And honestly, I think your kids learned more about integrity last night than they ever did from anything you said." His jaw tightened. "Lucas, he's just a janitor. How could you think—" I held up my hand. "Stop. Lucas's job has nothing to do with his worth. And more importantly, nothing about him has anything to do with my love for him. You were never able to understand that." He opened his mouth to argue, but I continued, my words steady, my confidence solid. "I've spent years bending to your whims, trying to make peace, trying to justify your behavior. No more. My life isn't about proving anything to you. It's about happiness, respect, and love. And Lucas gives me all of that." Ryan looked like he wanted to retort, but couldn't find the words. I realized then that the power dynamic had completely shifted. For once, it wasn't about him dictating the terms. It was about me standing in my truth. I glanced at Lucas, who gave me a subtle nod of encouragement. The reassurance in his eyes reminded me that I wasn't just standing up to Ryan. I was finally stepping fully into my own life. By the time we left the cafe, Ryan's presence felt diminished, almost irrelevant. The weight that had always accompanied his manipulations seemed to lift off my shoulders. I felt lighter than I had in years, unburdened by the need to tolerate his control or prove myself. That evening, we returned home, and the house was alive with laughter. Olivia and Jake recounted every detail from yesterday, exaggerating Ryan's expressions, and we all laughed until our cheeks hurt. Lucas joined in, patient yet amused, letting the kids lead the stories, reinforcing the idea that this was now our safe space, one free from judgment and cruelty. As I tucked the kids into bed, I felt a sense of pride swell inside me. Not just for handling Ryan, but for showing my children that strength isn't loud or aggressive. It's quiet, steady, and grounded in self-respect. I thought about the woman I had been just a few years ago. So insecure, hesitant, and fearful. And I realized how far I had come. Lucas stayed behind, helping me clear the dishes. "You know," he said softly, "tonight wasn't just a victory over Ryan. It was a victory for you, for us, for your family. And it's just the beginning." I looked at him, grateful and awed by the life we were building together. "Yes," I whispered, "the beginning of something real." Outside, the city twinkled under the winter sky, each light a reminder that the world was bigger than past mistakes, bigger than Ryan's judgments, and filled with possibilities. Inside, our home was warm, filled with love, laughter, and the unshakable knowledge that no one could diminish the life we were creating. For the first time in years, I felt safe. Truly. The next morning, I woke to the smell of freshly brewed coffee drifting from the kitchen. Lucas was already up, quietly preparing breakfast. I watched him from the doorway, my heart swelling with gratitude. This man, my rock, had changed my life in ways I hadn't even realized I'd needed. Olivia and Jake rushed in, still buzzing from yesterday's excitement. "Mom, Dad didn't even try to call after last night," Olivia said, her tone a mix of amusement and disbelief. "I think he's scared." I laughed softly. "Good. Let him be scared. That's exactly where he belongs." We ate breakfast in a light-hearted mood, but there was an undercurrent of anticipation. I knew Ryan wasn't going to disappear quietly. His ego wouldn't allow it. And deep down, I didn't want him to. I wanted closure, not drama. By mid-morning, my phone rang. It was a local real estate agent, reminding me about a house showing I had scheduled. Lucas and I were considering moving to a new place, something bigger, more open, more ours. I agreed to meet later that day. The afternoon arrived, and we drove to the property, the kids chatting non-stop in the back seat. The house was perfect, sunlit rooms, high ceilings, and a backyard that seemed made for laughter and snowball fights. Lucas smiled, clearly imagining the life we could have here. As we toured the rooms, I felt a sense of peace settle over me. This wasn't just about a new house. It was about building a new life. A life that Ryan couldn't touch, couldn't taint. And yet I knew he would try. Sure enough, just as we were stepping outside, my phone buzzed. A text from Ryan. "Meet me. Tonight. Your place." I showed Lucas. He didn't hesitate. "We'll face this together," he said firmly. That evening, after the kids were tucked in, we waited. The knock on the door was sharp, deliberate. Ryan stood there, his coat dusted with snow, his expression a mixture of anger and disbelief. "I just want to talk," he said, his voice unsteady. I opened the door fully, gesturing for him to come in. "Then talk. But I won't be bullied or belittled. Speak your mind respectfully, or don't speak at all." He swallowed, glanced at Lucas, and nodded reluctantly. "Fine," he said. I didn't think Lucas. I thought he's just a janitor. How could you?" I raised my hand. "Stop. You're obsessing over his job instead of seeing him as the man who makes me happy. That's the difference, Ryan. You never saw me. Lucas does. That's why I'm with him." His face twisted in frustration. I wanted to protect you." I shook my head. "Protect me? By mocking the man I love? By trying to control me? No, Ryan, I've had enough. I'm done letting you define what's acceptable in my life." Lucas, who had been quietly observing, stepped forward. "Ryan, she's not your responsibility anymore. She's happy and she's strong. That's the reality you have to accept." The silence was deafening. Ryan looked from me to Lucas, then at the floor. Realizing finally that no words could undo what had already been done, I felt a surge of empowerment. For years, I had bent to Ryan's whims, let him dictate my self-worth. Now, watching him shrink in front of Lucas's quiet confidence, I understood that life could be different. Life could be ours. As Ryan finally turned to leave, I spoke one last time. "Remember, it's not about your approval. It's about my happiness, and nothing you say can take that away." Lucas took my hand, giving it a reassuring squeeze. "Come on," he said. "Let's not let him steal one more moment from us." We returned to the living room, where the kids had left little notes for us. Drawings, misspelled messages of love, and reminders that home was a place of laughter and warmth. I felt a profound sense of gratitude. This life, the one I was creating with Lucas, was real, and it was ours. That night, as I lay in bed, I thought about the journey that had brought me here, the pain, the fear, the uncertainty, and yet each step had led to this moment of clarity, strength, and love. I had survived. I had grown, and most importantly, I had chosen a life where I was cherished, not controlled. Outside, the city lights sparkled, indifferent to the struggles below. But inside, my world was radiant. Lucas's steady presence, the kids' laughter, and the knowledge that I was no longer living in someone else's shadow filled me with a warmth I had never known. This was my life, fully and unapologetically. And for the first time, I felt completely unstoppable. The following morning, the air outside was crisp, the kind of winter chill that made your cheeks tingle and your breath fog in little clouds. Lucas and I had agreed that today would be about preparation, planning Christmas Eve dinner, checking in with the caterer, making sure the house sparkled, and, secretly, coordinating a little surprise I had no idea he had been plotting. While I unpacked decorations from the attic, Lucas disappeared into the garage. When I called for him, there was no answer. Curious, I went to investigate, and my jaw dropped. There, parked in the driveway under a dusting of snow, was a brand new Bentley. Its sleek black body gleamed even under the muted morning sun. I turned to Lucas, eyes wide. Is this for you?" He laughed softly, shaking his head. Not for me, but it's part of the surprise. Wait till tonight. Trust me, it'll be worth it. I couldn't help but grin. Lucas had always had a flair for dramatic gestures, the kind that made life feel cinematic and magical, even in the smallest ways. I had fallen for him not just for his kindness and patience, but for the way he could turn ordinary days into moments I remember forever. That afternoon, the kids were bouncing around with excitement. Olivia, now 16, had inherited my stubborn streak, while Jake, just 12, was already showing a knack for mischief. "Mom, are you ready for the biggest Christmas ever?" Olivia asked, her eyes sparkling. I laughed, adjusting a strand of hair that had escaped my braid. "I think so, sweetheart. But remember, the biggest Christmas isn't about presents. It's about being together." Jake groaned playfully. Yeah, Mom, but the presents are cool too." By late afternoon, the house was ready. Twinkling lights lined the staircase. The tree was perfectly decorated with a mix of ornaments we had collected over the years, and the scent of pine mingled with the aroma of cinnamon and baked cookies. Everything felt perfect. Just as we were putting the finishing touches on the dining room, there was a knock at the door. Lucas and I exchanged a knowing glance. He opened it, and there stood Ryan, exuding that familiar mix of arrogance and insecurity, as if he didn't know whether he was allowed to step into our world. "Mom, I mean Sara," he stammered, glancing nervously at the Bentley parked outside. I just wanted to—" I held up a hand, cutting him off. "Ryan, if you're here to criticize, mock, or try to control anything, save it. That part of our lives is over." His eyes flicked to Lucas, who was standing quietly behind me. He's just a janitor," Ryan muttered, almost under his breath. Lucas's jaw tightened. Then, in a calm, measured voice, he said 3 words that would change everything. "Think again, Ryan." I felt my heart skip a beat as Ryan's face went pale. Lucas gestured for him to look outside. Slowly, Ryan followed, and his jaw dropped when he saw the Bentley gleaming in the driveway. This, how?" Ryan stammered. Lucas stepped forward, smiling slightly. "You underestimated me, and you underestimated what Sara sees in people. That's your mistake, Ryan. I don't need your approval, and I never did." The silence was heavy, charged with unspoken truths. Ryan swallowed, realizing that no amount of mockery could undo the bond we had built, the life we were creating together. Just then, Olivia and Jake appeared, tugging at his coat. "Ryan, come see the tree," Jake said cheerfully, dragging him toward the living room. I couldn't help but laugh. Despite everything, the kids' innocence and joy had a way of softening even the hardest of moments. Throughout the evening, Ryan tried to interject, make sarcastic comments, and regain some semblance of authority, but it was futile. Every time he opened his mouth, Lucas would calmly, firmly, and politely show him that respect was earned, not demanded. By the end of the night, it was clear who held the true power in our family: love, kindness, and mutual respect. Dinner was served, the table laden with dishes that smelled like holiday heaven. Lucas had even prepared a special dish just for me, using ingredients he knew I loved. We laughed, shared stories, and toasted to new beginnings. Ryan sat quietly, largely ignored, while Olivia and Jake chattered happily, celebrating their blended family and the warmth of a home that was finally safe and loving. After dessert, Lucas pulled me aside. "Ready for the last part of the surprise?" he asked, his eyes twinkling. I nodded, curiosity piqued. He led me to the driveway, where a small crowd had gathered. Friends, neighbors, even some colleagues from the community center project. Lucas handed me a microphone. "Tonight," he said, his voice carrying over the soft crunch of snow underfoot, "we celebrate Sara. Not just for surviving, but for thriving. For showing us that life isn't about being perfect. It's about being brave." Tears pricked my eyes as he gestured to a banner he had hung between two trees. "Merry Christmas, Sara. A life reclaimed, a future cherished." Ryan stood in the background, speechless. He realized that no words, no judgments, no attempts at control could ever overshadow the love, respect, and admiration we had for each other. The night was ours. Lucas and I shared a quiet moment, holding hands, hearts beating in sync. "This," he whispered, "is just the beginning." And for the first time in years, I believed it. The holidays, the Bentley, the surprise, the family, all of it was a testament to courage, to second chances, and to choosing people who see and treasure you, not the ones who belittle or control. Outside, the snow continued to fall, soft and silent, blanketing the world in white. Inside, our hearts were warm, our laughter free, and our future bright. For the first time, the story was truly ours to write. The next morning dawned crisp and clear, the kind of winter day that felt like it had been painted for a postcard. I woke to the aroma of sizzling bacon and freshly brewed coffee wafting up from the kitchen. Nolan was already there, humming softly to himself as he prepared breakfast. Watching him move around the kitchen with that quiet competence, I felt a swell of gratitude. This man, steady, kind, and unassuming, had transformed my world in ways I hadn't even realized I needed. Ellie and Max barreled into the kitchen, still bouncing from last night's chaos. "Mom, did you see Dad's face when he saw Nolan's car?" "Priceless," Ellie squealed, eyes sparkling with mischief. I laughed, ruffling her hair. "Yeah, it was something, wasn't it? But remember, the best part isn't showing off. It's about being happy with the people who actually matter." Max nodded vigorously. "Yeah, Mom, but the Bentley was insane. I mean, wow!" We ate breakfast amidst laughter and chatter, the tension from yesterday already melting away in the warmth of our little family bubble. And yet, I could feel the undercurrent of anticipation, the knowledge that Ryan wouldn't vanish quietly. His ego wouldn't allow it, and part of me knew I didn't want him to. I wanted closure, not ongoing drama, but that closure had to come on my terms. By mid-morning, a knock on the door startled me. Nolan peeked around the corner. "Expecting someone?" "No, not yet," I replied, frowning slightly. I wasn't nervous, just cautious. Opening the door revealed Ryan, standing awkwardly in the doorway, snow dusting his coat, eyes darting nervously. I just wanted to talk," he said, voice slightly trembling. I stepped aside. "Talk then. But know this, I will not tolerate mockery or belittling. Speak respectfully or don't speak at all." Ryan glanced at Nolan, hesitation flickering across his face. I didn't think he... I thought he's just a janitor. How could you? I held up a hand. Stop. Stop focusing on his job. Look at him for who he is. The man who makes me happy. That's the difference, Ryan. You never saw me. Nolan does. That's why I chose him. His face twisted with frustration. I wanted to protect you. I shook my head. Protect me? By mocking the person I love? By trying to control my life? No, Ryan. That chapter is closed. I decide what's acceptable now. Nolan, who had been quietly observing, stepped forward, his voice calm but firm. Ryan, she's not yours to manage anymore. She's strong, she's happy, and she's loved. Accept that or step aside. For a long moment, Ryan simply stared, realizing that no amount of sarcasm, judgment, or authority could undo the life we were building together. I could see the color drain from his face as he slowly understood that his time of influence had ended. Remember, I added quietly, my voice steady, it's not about your approval. It's about my happiness. Nothing you say can take that away. Finally, Ryan turned and walked out, shoulders tense, defeated. I closed the door and turned to Nolan, who took my hand and smiled reassuringly. Come on, he said softly. Let's not let him steal another moment from our lives. The rest of the day passed in a comforting blur of preparation for the Christmas Eve gathering. The house smelled of pine, baked goods, and warmth. Lights twinkled along the staircase, casting playful reflections on the walls. I took a step back to admire the scene, feeling a profound sense of accomplishment. This home, this life, wasn't built on fear or manipulation. It was built on love, laughter, and choice. By evening, Nolan and I had finished the final touches. We were just about to call the kids for dinner when a surprise knock sounded at the door. Nolan opened it, revealing a small group of our closest friends and neighbors, all bundled in scarves and coats, faces smiling despite the cold. We heard about the surprise Bentley, one of them joked, eyes twinkling. We had to see it for ourselves. I laughed, taking Nolan's arm. It's just a car, I said, but my heart leapt. This was more than a car. It was a symbol of a life reclaimed, a reminder that we could thrive, laugh, and celebrate, even after pain and uncertainty. Dinner was served in the glow of twinkling lights. The table groaned under homemade dishes, cinnamon spice treats, and laughter that came easy and free. Ellie and Max shared stories, jokes, and little triumphs from their day, their energy contagious. Nolan and I exchanged glances, silent conversations passing between us, gratitude, love, and the thrill of knowing we were truly a family now, unbroken and unafraid. As dessert plates were cleared, Nolan leaned toward me. Ready for the final part of the surprise? He whispered, voice low but filled with excitement. I nodded, curiosity sparkling in my eyes. He led me to the driveway, where lights had been strung across the trees, illuminating the snow like a winter wonderland. In his hand, he held a small box, which he placed in mine. Inside was a delicate necklace, the pendant engraved with a single word: brave. Tears blurred my vision. It's perfect, I whispered. Just like you, Nolan replied, his smile warm and steady. At that moment, I realized that bravery wasn't about confrontation alone. It was about choosing love, reclaiming life and surrounding yourself with people who see your worth. Ryan had mocked. He had tried to control, but he could never diminish what we had built together. The snow continued to fall softly, blanketing the world in peace. Inside, hearts were full, laughter lingering, and the future ours to write shone brighter than ever. The morning after our snow-lit celebration, the world seemed quieter, softer, as if it had been waiting for this moment of peace to arrive. I woke to the smell of toasted cinnamon rolls and the faint hum of holiday music playing from the kitchen. Nolan was humming again, carefully arranging plates and cups, while Ellie and Max scurried around, eager to share everything they had been planning for Christmas Day. Sitting at the kitchen table, with my coffee warming my hands, I watched Nolan move gracefully through the space, his calm demeanor a stark contrast to the chaos that had once defined my life with Ryan. I thought about how life had changed, how after years of fear, ridicule, and manipulation, I was finally living in a home filled with laughter, love, and respect. Ellie leaned over, eyes wide with curiosity. "Mom, can you believe Dad's face yesterday? Nolan totally schooled him." Max nodded enthusiastically. "Yeah, and the Bentley! I mean, who even drives a car like that?" I chuckled softly. It wasn't about the car, kids. It was about knowing your mom is happy and safe. That's what matters. Ellie wrinkled her nose. "Still, the car was awesome." Nolan appeared behind me, brushing snowflakes from his coat, and handed me a small envelope. "This arrived for you while you were sleeping," he said. I opened it to find a note from a close friend, someone who had seen me at my lowest and now rejoiced in my happiness. It was filled with words of admiration and encouragement, reminding me that life wasn't about dwelling on the past, but about embracing the present with courage. The note sparked a memory of the confrontation with Ryan. I realized that day marked more than just a victory over him. It symbolized my reclaiming of control, my choice to no longer be defined by someone else's judgment or cruelty. As we prepared to leave for the community center site to check on progress, Nolan held my hand, grounding me. "You've done so much for others, Sara, but it's okay to let yourself be celebrated too." His words struck a chord. For years, I had focused solely on pleasing others, repairing broken relationships, and trying to survive. Now, I could finally accept that I was worthy of joy, recognition, and love, not because I had to earn it, but because I deserved it. Driving through the quiet streets, the snow crunching beneath the tires, I felt a serene sense of anticipation. The community center would open soon, a place where women could rebuild their lives with support, safety, and guidance. And soon, I would officially see it named after me, a symbol not of my past struggles, but of resilience, courage, and the power of choosing life on my own terms. At the site, contractors waved and greeted us warmly. Nolan and I toured the progress, walking through empty halls, soon to be filled with laughter, learning, and healing. The walls seemed to hum with potential, as if the building itself knew it would serve as a sanctuary for so many. Ellie and Max followed close behind, imagining the different rooms and how they might be used. "The library should have a cozy corner," Ellie said, "with big pillows and fairy lights." "And a playroom for kids?" Max added enthusiastically, bouncing on the balls of his feet. I laughed, grateful for their energy and innocence. Seeing them excited for a place that could help others reminded me that life was no longer just about surviving. It was about giving, sharing, and creating spaces where hope could flourish. Later, as we drove home, a soft snow began to fall again, dusting the trees and rooftops in sparkling white. I watched the flakes land gently on the windshield, feeling a deep sense of calm. Nolan reached over and squeezed my hand. "Ready to come back to the family chaos?" he teased. I smiled, leaning into him. Chaos never felt so good. Back at home, we spent the evening decorating the tree and wrapping gifts. The kids were in charge of the ornaments, while Nolan and I handled the lights, a silent rhythm developing between us. As the room filled with warmth, the glow of the tree reflecting off the windows, I felt an overwhelming sense of belonging. This wasn't perfection. It was better than that. It was real. It was ours. And it was built on trust, respect, and love. Later that night, as the house finally quieted, I sat by the window with a cup of tea, watching the snow blanket the street in silence. Memories of Ryan's mockery surfaced briefly, but instead of anger or hurt, I felt relief. Relief that he could no longer dictate my life. Relief that I had chosen a different path. And relief that love, true love, had found me despite the odds. Nolan joined me, wrapping his arms around my shoulders. "You've come a long way," he murmured. I leaned into him, heart full. "Yeah, and I'm not done yet. There's still so much to do, so many lives to touch. But for the first time, I know I'm doing it from a place of strength, not fear." As we sat in the quiet of the night, the house filled with soft light and the faint scent of pine, I realized that bravery wasn't just confronting others. It was embracing your own worth, your own happiness, and allowing yourself to love without hesitation. And as I drifted to sleep that night, the snow falling softly outside, I knew one thing for certain. Life was finally ours to shape, full of promise, laughter, and endless possibilities. The past was a shadow, but the future gleamed brightly, and I was ready to step fully into it. The following morning, the house was buzzing with energy. Sara woke to the sound of Max's laughter echoing down the hallway, and Ellie's excited chatter about the holiday crafts she had planned. Nolan was already in the kitchen, brewing coffee and preparing breakfast, his calm presence a steady anchor in the lively chaos. "Morning, sunshine," Nolan greeted, wrapping an arm around Sara as she entered the kitchen. "You ready for today's big adventure?" Sara smiled, brushing a loose strand of hair from her face. "I think so." The community center's progress check feels more exciting than ever. And I want to make sure everything is perfect before the holiday break. The kids, thrilled at the idea of touring the construction site, ate breakfast quickly, their eyes sparkling with anticipation. As they finished, Sara reminded them of the importance of what Nolan and she were doing, creating a safe place where women could rebuild their lives. "This center is going to be amazing," she said softly. "And soon it'll have our names on it, not just as a building, but as a symbol of hope." Nolan grinned. and we're gonna make sure the grand opening is unforgettable." As they drove through the snow-covered streets, Sara couldn't help but reflect on how far she had come. Just a year ago, she had been trapped in a toxic marriage with Ryan, constantly belittled and disregarded. Her self-worth had been tied to his whims, her confidence eroded by years of manipulation. Now, sitting beside Nolan, with her children laughing in the back seat, she felt stronger than ever. Arriving at the community center, they were greeted by contractors and architects eager to show progress. Walls had gone up, windows were fitted, and the skeleton of the center had transformed into a space that could soon welcome women and children seeking refuge and empowerment. Sara ran her hand along the smooth painted walls, imagining the stories, laughter, and tears that would soon fill these rooms. One of the project managers approached, holding a folder of blueprints. "Miss Hayes, we've incorporated your suggestions for the counseling rooms and childcare areas. We've even added a small library corner for the kids. We think it's going to be perfect." Sara's heart swelled with pride. "Thank you. This means more than you know. Every detail matters." Ellie tugged at her sleeve, pointing at the large open area. "Mom, can we have a small stage for storytelling? And maybe a reading nook with fairy lights?" Max chimed in. "And a play area with colorful mats. Kids need a place to be kids while their moms work on their new skills." Sara laughed, embracing their ideas. She wanted them to feel involved, to see that helping others could be fun and rewarding. Nolan smiled at the children, his eyes softening, as he watched them imagine the possibilities. As they walked through the center, Sara couldn't help but think about the contrast between her past and present. The woman who had once felt powerless, mocked by Ryan for every choice she made, was now shaping a legacy built on resilience and generosity. The thought made her smile, a warm, genuine curve of her lips that had been absent for far too long. After touring the center, they returned home for a quiet lunch. The house smelled of roasted vegetables and fresh bread, a comforting aroma that seemed to signify more than just a meal. It was the scent of stability, security, and love. During lunch, Sara reflected on the events of the past months. Ryan's mockery at Christmas had been a sharp reminder of the past. But it no longer held power over her. Instead, it had become a motivator, pushing her to embrace life fully, to surround herself with people who valued her for who she truly was. Ellie leaned over and whispered, "Mom, Nolan's amazing. I'm glad he's our family." Max nodded vigorously. "Yeah, he's like a superhero, but nicer." Sara's eyes teared up slightly, overwhelmed by the simple, pure love her children had for Nolan and the life they were building together. She reached across the table, squeezing Nolan's hand. "We've all grown so much, haven't we?" Nolan nodded, eyes meeting hers. "We have, and this is just the beginning. Think of all the women and kids we're going to help. You've already changed lives, Sara, and now we're creating a space for so many more." That evening, as the family settled by the fireplace with mugs of cocoa, Sara felt a profound sense of contentment. The warmth of the fire mirrored the warmth she felt in her heart. The laughter of her children, the quiet support of Nolan, and the anticipation of the community center all contributed to a feeling she hadn't experienced in years: belonging. Later, as the house grew quiet and the children drifted off to sleep, Sara found herself alone with Nolan in the living room. Snow continued to fall outside, coating the world in pristine white. Nolan took her hands in his gaze steady and reassuring. "Do you ever think about how far we've come?" he asked softly. "All the time," Sara admitted. "Sometimes I still can't believe this is real, that life can be this peaceful and full of love." Nolan smiled, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "It's real because we made it real. Because you chose it. You were brave enough to step away from fear and take control of your life. And now we get to build something beautiful together." Sara leaned into him, feeling the quiet joy settle deep into her bones. She realized that bravery wasn't about grand gestures or confrontation. It was about showing up for yourself, for your children, and for the people who truly mattered. It was about creating a life worth living, no matter what obstacles had come before. As they sat together in the soft glow of the fire, Sara felt a deep sense of gratitude. The past was behind her. Ryan's shadow finally diminished, and the future stretched ahead with endless possibilities. She knew there would still be challenges, but with Nolan by her side and her children's love guiding her, she felt ready for anything. That night, as Sara drifted to sleep with the sound of the snow outside, she knew she was exactly where she was meant to be: safe, loved, and ready to embrace a life of purpose and happiness. The next morning, sunlight spilled through the curtains, painting golden streaks across the living room. Sara woke to the soft hum of the city outside and the comforting presence of Nolan beside her. The previous day's progress at the community center had filled her with a renewed sense of purpose, and now it was time to take the next steps. Over breakfast, Sara went through her checklist: calls with contractors, scheduling meetings with city planners, and finalizing the layout for the opening ceremony. Nolan offered his usual calm efficiency, managing details with the kind of patience and care Sara had never experienced before. Together, they moved seamlessly, a team united by shared goals and mutual respect. "Mom, can we decorate the kids' area tomorrow?" Ellie asked eagerly, interrupting Sara's planning. "Of course," Sara smiled. "We'll make it bright, colorful, and full of fun." Max jumped in. "And I want to help with the library corner. Can we put in some beanbags?" Sara laughed, feeling a deep sense of fulfillment. This wasn't just a building. It was a living, breathing space for change, and her children's enthusiasm reminded her of why it mattered so much. After the kids left for school, Sara and Nolan headed to the center to meet with the lead architect. Walking through the nearly completed spaces, Sara imagined women coming in with hope, leaving with confidence. Each room held a promise: counseling rooms for emotional healing, classrooms for skill building, and quiet corners for reflection. She could almost hear the laughter and conversation that would soon fill the air. As they stepped outside to examine the landscaping plans, Sara's phone buzzed. It was a message from her sister, congratulating her on the progress. Sara paused, reflecting on the journey that had brought her here, from lonely, uncertain nights to a life brimming with support, love, and ambition. Returning home, Sara found Nolan waiting with a small package. "What's this?" she asked, curious. He handed her the box, smiling softly. Inside was a delicate bracelet, engraved with the word courage. Sara felt a lump in her throat, touched by the thoughtfulness. "You've shown so much strength," Nolan said. "Not just for yourself, but for your children, for everyone who will walk through the center's doors. This is a reminder that your bravery inspires others every day." Tears pricked her eyes as she clasped the bracelet around her wrist. "Thank you, Nolan, for believing in me when I couldn't always believe in myself." Later, the family gathered for a small, impromptu brunch. Sara's children were eager to share stories from school, and the atmosphere was filled with warmth and laughter. Conversations flowed easily, untainted by judgment or tension, a stark contrast to the toxic dynamics of her past with Ryan. As the day wore on, Sara reflected on the lessons she had learned. She realized that true empowerment didn't come from money, power, or social standing. It came from love, respect, and the courage to make choices that honored your own worth. Her life, once dictated by fear and manipulation, was now guided by intention and joy. By evening, the snow had returned, covering the city in a pristine layer of white. Sara watched from the window, the city lights sparkling like distant stars. Somewhere out there, Ryan continued his lonely routines, but it no longer mattered. His story was his to write, and hers was hers, filled with purpose, family, and love. Nolan joined her at the window, wrapping an arm around her shoulders. "Ready to start the next chapter?" he asked. Sara leaned into him, feeling the warmth of his presence. "More than ever, this is our life, our family, and our chance to make a difference." Together, they imagined the grand opening of the community center, a celebration of resilience, courage, and the power of second chances. Sara thought of the women who would walk through its doors, the children who would laugh in its hallways, and the hope that would radiate from every corner. That night, as Sara lay in bed with Nolan beside her, she reflected on the journey that had brought her here. She had faced humiliation, betrayal, and heartbreak, yet she had emerged stronger, braver, and ready to embrace life fully. Her children had witnessed her growth, and together they had found a love that uplifted rather than controlled. Sara knew there would still be challenges ahead. Life was never without them, but she felt prepared to face whatever came, fortified by her own resilience and the unwavering support of her family. She had discovered the difference between being wanted and being treasured, and now she understood that the latter was the foundation of a truly happy life. As the city slept beneath a blanket of snow, Sara drifted into a deep, peaceful sleep, her heart full. She was finally living the life she had always deserved, surrounded by love, hope, and the promise of brighter days. The past had shaped her, but it no longer defined her. The future, she knew, was hers to create. And with that thought, she smiled, knowing that the story she was writing now, of courage, love, and family, was only just beginning.